Pain is universal. Everybody's pain is different for them, for those people. But the common denominator of pain is that you find people everywhere that succumb to it. They can't cope with it. And they feel that they can't survive it. So my goal, our goal, is to help Guamanians learn how to cope with, survive their pain, and then find a way to thrive. We call it mental illness, right? Everyone does. We're conditioned to. People are mentally ill. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you wanted to be labeled mental?
I guess never.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody does. If we call it mental and we call it stigma, those are not enough. Language matters. They invalidate that pain. Pain comes for all of us if it hasn't already. Breathe. Hear me when I say this. Your thoughts do not have to become your actions. Do the work, put in the effort, build the self-awareness techniques to survive your pain so someday, like me, you can thrive. I leapt off the most frequented spot for suicide in the world, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California. 25 stories, 80 miles per hour falling, closing on the speed of terminal velocity, praying on the way down that I would live. I was blinded by the suicidal ideation. I didn't know my thoughts didn't have to become my actions back then. The millisecond my hands left the rail and my legs cleared it, instantaneous regret for my actions. And I fell those 250 feet praying on the way down that I would live. The depression was wiped from my mind. The auditory hallucinations I was hearing were gone, that were telling me I had to die. Psychosis. All I wanted to do was live. Fight or flight mode, and I was fighting. Hit that water like a ton of bricks. You hit that water from that height at that speed like hitting a solid brick wall. Impact reverberated through my legs, shattered my T12, L1, L2 lower vertebrae into shards like glass, severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters away from certain death. That changes a man if he gets the privilege of surviving. Went down 70 feet in the water, opened my eyes, and I was drowning, didn't want to drown. Why'd you jump into a giant body of water? Upon hitting the water, an implosion of pain in my insides. It was the most physical pain I'd ever experienced up till that point. And I vividly remember thinking, I cannot die here. If I die here, no one will ever know I didn't want to. No one will ever know I knew I made a mistake. Broke the surface of the water, bobbed up and down in it, and did the one thing I've had control over since kindergarten. I prayed. A woman driving by in a red car, at the moment of my attempt, saw me go over the rail, called her friend from her car phone, year 2000, it was a car phone, not cell phone, called her friend from her car phone, who was in the United States Coast Guard, manning the waters of the bridge at that moment. The singular reason the Coast Guard boat got to my position in the water before I was to set in hypothermia and drown, that woman's phone call. Miracle number 1. Miracle number 2. I kept going down in the water. My boots were waterlogged, long sleeve clothing was heavy. I couldn't stay above water. I go down one more time. I think this is it. This is where I die. Nobody is going to know I didn't want to. What have I just done? And that's when something very large and very slimy and very alive begins circling beneath me. And I remember going, you got to be kidding me. It's a great white breeding ground. I was like, I didn't die jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and a shark is going to eat me. Perfect. That's how I get to die. I felt like an idiot. I took my one good unwrenched arm and I'm punching this creature. I'm sliding off its back. It's not going anywhere. It's circling faster and faster, faster and faster. And I realized after a minute to stop fighting it. Because I wasn't wading in the water. I wasn't treading in the water. I'm lying atop it on my back, being kept buoyant by this creature, thinking this is the nicest shark I've ever met. But it turns out it wasn't a shark at all. It turns out that there was a man on the bridge named Morgan who saw me in the water. He was there on that bridge that day with his mom. And he saw me on a news program a year later. And on the news program, of course, I said I thought there was a shark beneath me in the water. Well, the news program went viral online before viral was cool. One man's letter stuck out of all the rest, Morgan's. And he said, and I quote, "Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. Until this day, watching this show, no one would tell me whether you lived or died. It's haunted me until now." By the way, there was no shark, like you mentioned you thought there was on the show, but there absolutely was a sea lion. The people above looking down believed it to be keeping your body afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind you. Now, you can call that whatever you want. Everybody has a different perspective on this issue, but God saved my life that day. With my smiles and everything, you can't tell I'm in pain. I don't show it. I'm used to it. It's part of the deal. I need no pity for it. I take no meds for it. I did this to myself. I have to take responsibility for my actions, but I get to have that pain because I exist. Where 23 years ago, I should have died. I get to be here. And getting to be here is a privilege and a gift no matter the pain I'm in. Today's been hard because when you go places and you tell people your stories, they tell you theirs. And you have to find a way to compartmentalize all of that pain. Today we got 3 girls to counseling. 3 girls that were in an exorbitant amount of pain. And they were bold enough and brave enough to come up to me after my talk and tell me their story. On the first day I was here, one of the students wrote to me on social media and said I was going to take my life today. But now I know I can cope with my pain. I'll be here tomorrow. I'm the luckiest guy on the earth. I get to travel the world with people like Lena and Dennis and Ashley and you and share a story that impacts lives. I'm not a savior. I have no God complex. I'm a conduit. I give a message. People go home. They do the work. They save themselves. Give yourselves credit. Gratitude and resilience have proven to be scientifically the 2 most proven factors to keep people away from suicide. I live with chronic thoughts of suicide, Troy.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah. They plague me.
What do you do?
You know, they're insidious. They come into your mind, and scientifically they loop in your brain. And then you become this machine that self-loathes, right? I still deal with that. I'm not recovered. I'm not well. I live in recovery each and every day. I fight to be here. I fight to exist. Whenever I'm suicidal, the first thing I do is find a mirror. The first thing I do is find a mirror. A reflective piece of glass even, you know? I look in that reflective piece of glass or that mirror. I say, your thoughts don't have to become your actions. They can simply be your thoughts. I repeat it as many times as I need to. The second thing I do is I turn to anyone in front of me. And if I was suicidal right now, I would tell you, Troy. I'm not, but if I was, I'd say 4 simple but very effective words. I need help now. And it's not always going to be the 1st to 5th to 10th person you turn to that's going to get your back, because not everybody is willing, able, or understanding enough to empathize with that kind of pain. But by the sheer probability of the number of people you turn to, someone will get your back. There are people in this world that are called to service, that will respond accordingly and make sure you are safe even from yourself as often as you need it. Along with pain being universal, the culture of silence in this world is universal for many different cultures. Be quiet, do what you're told, do your work, get to the next day. If you don't know how to empathize with your child who is having behavioral issues due to brain pain or potential mental crises, try to remember when you were a child and you were having brain pain and potential mental crises. Try to not distance yourself from your inner child. Remember that time, equate it to your children, look up the definition in the dictionary of empathy, and just like you want to build resilience for your kids, build that empathy to create that trust in your family so that when your child fears telling you something so deep and so dark and so hurtful, instead of not telling you, you're the first person they turn to. Turn to your child starting today, not tomorrow, not the next day, not the next month or the next year. Turn to your children starting today and say, from this day forward, I'm an open book. You can tell me anything. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to listen with the intent to understand, not to respond or get angry about it. Whatever you're going through, my child, I will always love you. I will always be there for you. I will always have your back. When that shift happens in a household, lives can be saved.